debate. The Honourable Member for London West.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. C'est un plaisir de vous revoir assise là. I'd like to start by mentioning an unfortunate accident that happened last night in London West involving 11 people, 8 of whom were taken to the hospital. And this morning we have learned that a young girl at only 8 years old has lost her life in this tragic accident. My deepest condolences are extended to her family and her friends in our London community. I want to also extend well wishes to the injured and all their families involved, and thank our first responders for being the first people there to support everyone. Madam Speaker, I want to take the time to recognize and appreciate the people of London West who allowed me to take this seat, and I will continue to work hard to serve them. And if I can quickly, Madam Speaker, I want to thank my son Noah, and he will likely be very embarrassed about what I have to say, but he is my motivation and inspiration to do and be the woman that I am today. I became a mom when I was 18 years old, and I have been dragging him along in my fight for equity and justice in London, and unknowingly, he has and continues to be the reason why I wake up every day to do this. Noah has remained my biggest supporter, a key volunteer who constantly kept the morale of the campaign office high. Even though he's a bandwagon Lakers fan, he keeps a smile on my face and has kept a smile on my face throughout the entire campaign. J'aimerais remercier ma mère pour son soutien pendant que je suis ici. Maman, tu m'as toujours soutenue, et si tu n'avais pas choisi de venir au Canada, quittant le Burundi, qui sait où je serais maintenant? To the rest of my family and friends, thank you for keeping me sane throughout these past several years of my political life. Your support has been immeasurable. Thank you. To the volunteers who helped me knock on thousands of doors throughout the campaign, thank you so much. I know it was an interesting campaign, full of challenges, but also full of friendships. And to my predecessor, Kate Young, thank you. Thank you so much for your tremendous support. Our weekly calls that we get on have really helped me and supported me navigate the space. Madam Speaker, in London, we have to recognize that this campaign was not perfect. I know that I don't need to remind this House that during his visit to London, the Prime Minister had gravel thrown at him. The fact that a G7 leader had gravel thrown at him is absolutely unacceptable and abhorrent behavior. Behavior that continues to show the cracks in our systems that have been even farther amplified over the last 2 years. London has not had an easy year when it comes to these sorts of displays of hate. When a terrorist attack happened last summer in my riding, we were also shocked and dismayed. The last 2 years have highlighted systemic racism and acts of discriminations and hate that have long faced Canada, and it is one of the main reasons why I first ran for City Council, to remove these barriers, to promote equity and access to services, and to support one another. I continue to stand in solidarity with the Muslim community in London and say to you that you belong here. And I look forward to working with you as we continue to stand against Islamophobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Black and Indigenous racism, and all forms of hate. Madam Speaker, elections are about ensuring that everyone has a say and giving the people a voice. All people. It doesn't matter where they come from or what they look like. All Canadians have the right to vote for the future they want. I felt that personally when the Burundian community in London and across Canada came out in support for my campaign. A community that frankly has been disengaged in politics recently because they felt that their voice was not being heard. So to have my community stand with me meant the world to me, and I want to thank them for that. I cannot wait to continue working hard to represent the people of London West, and thank you again for putting your trust in me. Now on the throne speech that laid out the future that Canadians want our government to work towards, I'll start by saying that we are still in the midst of a pandemic. 10,000 people, Madam Speaker, have died from COVID-19 in Ontario. With a new variant that have been identified across the world and now in Canada, we know that the work remains. Our government is prioritizing above all else the health and safety of Canadians while we work to get COVID-19 pandemic under control while ensuring that we have an inclusive and resilient recovery. That's why we're focusing on vaccination. We have mandated vaccination for federal and federally regulated workers as well as for everyone traveling within Canada. On top of that, our government is securing more vaccines, boosters, and doses for kids ages 5 to 11, and I know that means a lot to parents. Madam Speaker, we cannot debate science. The only way we'll get through this pandemic is by ensuring that all who can get vaccinated do. Tout au long de cette pandémie, nous n'avons pas seulement été témoins de la dévastation généralisée causée par le COVID-19, mais aussi des effets mortels du changement climatique et de la crise climatique à laquelle nous sommes actuellement confrontés. La semaine dernière, la population de la Colombie-Britannique a été confrontée à des inondations mortelles qui ont entraîné la perte des vies humaines, le déplacement des familles et l'interruption de l'importance des biens des anciennes. Les effets du changement climatique sont réels. Ils sont plus présents aujourd'hui dans notre société, ce qui est un code rouge pour l'humanité. Nous devons tous prendre des mesures immédiates pour faire en sorte que les générations futures, comme mon fils Noah, aient un endroit où vivre. Our government is committing to tackling climate crisis with even bolder climate action than we have been taking over the past 6 years. We will move to cap and cut oil and gas sector emissions while working to accelerate our path to a net zero electricity future. We will invest more in greener ways of transportation while increasing the price on pollution and strengthening disaster mitigation. These are much-needed steps and investments in cities, investments that will create more jobs, clean jobs, green jobs. As we move towards a greener and cleaner and more inclusive future, we can work to ensure that no more lives are lost over these catastrophic and horrifying effects of climate crisis. As we work to rebuild our economy, we have to focus on a sustainable and inclusive recovery that continues to support everyone who was disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, including women, small businesses, racialized communities, and seniors, just to name a few. Supporting Canadians with important access to accessible and affordable early and child care programs will ensure that women and parents are not left behind in our economic recovery. As a mom, I know firsthand the importance of giving your child the best possible start in life as you possibly can. So prioritizing a Canada-wide early learning and childcare system will provide every child with access to affordable early learning and childcare. It will help more women get back into the workforce and ease financial burdens that is often placed on families with younger children, especially in the most vulnerable communities. Lastly, I want to highlight an issue I spoke about in the House last Wednesday, housing. Tackling the rising cost of living includes ensuring that every Canadian, regardless of how much money they make, have access to a safe and affordable place to call home. Making sure that Canadians have access to affordable housing is vital as we look towards our economic recovery. Committing to making life more affordable by helping families to buy their first home sooner with the rent-to-own program and improving the first-time home buyers' incentives will be crucial for young Canadians in London West like myself, who dream of owning their first home. Building more housing across the country will increase affordability of housing, and what that means, Madam Speaker, is that we have to work with everyone on all levels of governments, with stakeholders, because to put it in plain language, Madam Speaker, we need more Canadians in homes and end this chronic homelessness, which the National Housing Strategy is set out to do. Madam Speaker, I know that this is only a small section of what our government is committing to do. I wanted to talk about those things because those are the things that I heard on doors in London West. Those are the reasons why many of us are sitting here, have been sent to this House, not to fight, but to fight for a future for Canadians, not to fight amongst ourselves. So let's unite together, Madam Speaker, to serve Canadians, all Canadians, and building a stronger, a greener, and more inclusive Canada. I look forward to expanding on this important work and working across the aisles to make sure that this happens for Canadians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.